All right, so we're back. Back for another deep dive,
That's right, yeah.
And we're sticking with Rockefeller.
Yeah.
His letters to his son.
We are, yeah.
We went through the first 11 last time.
Right?
And we're going to jump into 12 through 22 this time.
All right, that's right. So for everyone listening, our goal is basically to, we want to pull out the main points of these letters. Like, what is he really trying to say? What are the deeper lessons, the big ideas he's giving his son about business and life and making money?
Yeah, and the cool thing is these aren't just like generic business tips. This is real advice to his son. It's personal,
Definitely.
So it's like getting a peek behind the curtain at what made him so successful.
Right. We're not just looking at history. We're looking for those nuggets of wisdom that you can still use today right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. Letter 12. This one's titled, Hell is Full of Good People.
Oh, yeah.
And it starts off with a story that I thought was kind of funny. Rockefeller's on his way to play golf.
Right.
And this younger guy in a fancy car zooms past him.
Oh.
And, I thought he'd just ignore it. He's J.D. Rockefeller.
Right.
But no, it actually, sparked his competitive fire.
Really?
Yeah, he made sure to pass the guy before they got to the golf course. It's just, it shows you that even for him, that drive to be the best, to be in front, it never went away.
Totally. And you see that same drive in how he handled business. It wasn't just about winning. It was about always pushing, always improving, And that kind of sets the stage for the main story in this letter, his battle with the Pennsylvania Railroad Company.
Yeah, this wasn't like a small disagreement either.
Right.
The Pennsylvania Railroad, they had this company called Empire Transportation.
Okay.
And there was this guy Potts running it.
Right.
And they were trying to control basically all the oil transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd been working with Rockefeller, but then they started, trying to grab all the power, taking over the pipelines.
Yeah.
It was a real power play.
It sounds like it. So how did Rockefeller react to that?
Well, he wasn't just going to sit back and watch. He knew that if he gave them an inch, they'd take a mile.
Yeah.
So he did something pretty bold. He formed his own company, called it U.S. Transportation.
Oh, wow.
Got this guy, Mr. O'Dye, to run it.
Okay.
And it was a direct challenge to the railroad's monopoly.
So they're competing head to head now.
Yeah, and within a year, get this, U.S. Transportation controlled 40% of the oil transport. 40% in just 1 year.
That's huge.
It is. It shows you he wasn't afraid to shake things up, to fight back and create his own opportunities.
Absolutely. That he wasn't going to let someone else control his fate.
Right. Then he tells this story in the letter about an old man and some wild boars.
Wild boars. Okay.
Yeah, so this old man, he starts feeding these wild boars every day. Leaves food out for them.
Right.
And they get used to it, start relying on it.
They get comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then the old man, he starts building a fence around where they're feeding.
Oh, sneak.
Yeah, but he does it bit by bit, so the boars don't notice. They're too busy eating the free food.
Yeah.
And eventually, the fence is complete. They're trapped.
They walk right into it.
Exactly. And the lesson Rockefeller takes from this is pretty clear. If you depend on other people for everything, you become weak. You lose your edge.
It makes you vulnerable. So he's saying this about relying on handouts and things like that.
Yeah, he was really against giving people what he called a free lunch. He thought it made people lazy, took away their motivation to work hard and take care of themselves.
Interesting. It wasn't about being stingy. It was more like a deeper principle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He thought it took away people's dignity, to make them dependent.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And he even applied this to charity. He said giving money away without thinking it through could actually hurt people.
How so?
We thought it could make them less likely to work hard, less responsible.
I see.
He said it's like they're saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Right. Empower them instead of just giving them a temporary fix.
Exactly. It's about helping people become self-sufficient, not dependent. And he tells this story in the letter about a wise old king. This king wanted to, collect all the wisdom in the world.
Okay.
So he had all these scholars and advisors, writing down everything.
Wow.
And they filled volumes and volumes with wisdom.
Must have taken years.
Yeah, years and years. But the king, he wanted it all boiled down to one sentence.
Just one sentence. That's a challenge.
It is, right. So they kept working, refining it, making it more concise. And eventually they got it down to this. There is no free lunch in the world.
Wow, that's powerful. It really cuts to the chase.
It does. And that's really Rockefeller's whole philosophy in a nutshell. Anything worthwhile takes effort.
Nothing comes easy.
Right. Then he goes on to talk about different kinds of smart people.
Oh, okay.
He says there are smart people who use themselves, like artists, scholars, people who work with their hands.
Right. They rely on their own skills.
Exactly. And then there's people who use others,
Okay.
like managers, leaders, entrepreneurs.
Right.
And he says these people, they need a special kind of intelligence. He calls it the ability to grasp the heart.
Interesting. So it's not just about giving orders.
No, it's about understanding people, connecting with them on an emotional level.
It's more about leadership than management.
Exactly. And he makes this point about how if you underestimate people, it actually drains their energy. Like if you don't believe in them, if you don't see their potential, they lose motivation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not just bad for business, it's bad for them as people.
It's about valuing them, not just using them.
Exactly. Then towards the end of the letter, he talks about this thing a lot of smart people do.
Okay, what's that?
They don't like to admit when they don't understand something.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
It's that fear of looking stupid, especially if you're supposed to be the expert.
Exactly. But Rockefeller says that that attitude can hold you back.
It can. He says every time you don't understand something, it's a chance to learn something new.
It's an opportunity.
Yeah, and if you're too proud to ask questions, you miss out on those opportunities.
Makes sense.
So he says sometimes you got to be willing to play the fool, swallow your pride and say, I don't get it, explain it to me.
It's about putting learning above ego.
Exactly. He's saying that true intelligence is being open to learning, even if it means looking foolish sometimes.
That's a good point.
All right, so let's move on to letter 15. This one's titled, Wealth is the Byproduct of Diligence. And it starts with you highlighting two sentences from John's letter that really resonated with Rockefeller.
That's right, yeah. Those two sentences were, if you are not a winner, you are defying yourself, and diligence brings nobility. And Rockefeller just straight up says, these two sentences sum up my life motto. I am a living example of what they say. No false modesty there.
He's confident in his own philosophy.
Oh, yeah. And I think this letter is partly him pushing back against this image of him as a ruthless businessman, just a money-making machine.
Right. So he takes time to talk about his upbringing, how his mom instilled these values in him. Frugality, independence, diligence, trustworthiness, and a real entrepreneurial spirit, always looking for opportunities.
He says those values, those success creeds, as he calls them, are what really got him started.
Right. And he acknowledges the Civil War created a lot of opportunities, but he says it was hard work, not greed, that let him take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah.
He's countering his critics here.
Right, setting the record straight. And he even comes up with this law of success, which is an interesting way to put it.
How does he define that?
He says wealth isn't the goal, it's an accident, a byproduct of hard work.
Interesting.
Like if you're focused on just getting rich, you're missing the point. It's the hard work itself, the consistent effort that leads to success, whether it's financial or in any other area of life.
So it's about applying that diligence to anything you're passionate about.
Yeah, exactly. Then he dives into the meaning of diligence brings nobility. He talks about how throughout history, the people who achieve great things, who gain status and respect, it's always through hard work and dedication.
That's a universal principle.
Exactly. And he really goes after excuses in this letter. He calls them a mental illness of losers.
A strong statement.
Yeah. He contrasts successful people who focus on solutions with those who achieve little and always have an excuse for why.
Right. And he says the problem with excuses is you start believing them.
It becomes your reality.
Yeah, and it stops you from taking action, from moving forward. And then he lists all these common excuses people use. Family, personality, age, environment, not enough time, race, religion, all sorts of things.
Trying to categorize the ways people hold themselves back.
Yeah, but he really focuses on three: health, intelligence, and luck.
Okay, let's break those down. What does he say about health?
He tells this story about a one-armed university professor. This guy, despite his disability, was always optimistic, always helping others. And Rockefeller highlights how grateful this professor was for the abilities he still had, instead of complaining about what he'd lost.
It's about perspective.
Yeah, and he even quotes this, saying, I have been annoyed by my broken shoes until I met a man who has no feet.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
Right.
It puts things in perspective. Be thankful for what you have.
Definitely. What about intelligence? What's his take on that excuse?
Well, he says most people underestimate their own intelligence and overestimate others.
That's Probably true.
He says it's not about how much intelligence you have, but how you use it.
It's about application, not just raw potential.
Right. And he really emphasizes interest and enthusiasm, especially in business. He says the most successful business people are often driven by passion, not just brains.
That makes sense. Enthusiasm can be contagious.
It can. And he even challenges the idea that knowledge is power.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he says knowledge is only potential power. It's what you do with that knowledge that matters.
It's about using it to solve problems, to create things.
Exactly. He says we need more problem solvers, more creative thinkers, not just people who can memorize facts.
Makes sense. And what about luck? How does he address that one?
He basically says luck doesn't exist. He believes in cause and effect.
Okay.
So the people who seem lucky, they've actually put in the work, they've prepared, they've planned, they have a positive attitude.
They've created the conditions for success.
Exactly. And the people who have bad luck, there's usually a reason for it.
It's not just random chance.
Right. Then he ends this letter with the story of Al-Hafid and the diamond mine.
Okay, I've heard of this one.
Yeah. So Al-Hafid, he spends his whole life searching for diamonds. He travels all over the world, looking for this big score.
Right.
And he never finds anything.
Oh, no.
Then, after he dies, someone discovers a huge diamond mine on his property.
No way.
Yeah, the whole time. The diamonds are right there in his own backyard.
So the lesson is, sometimes the greatest opportunities are right in front of us.
Exactly. It's about looking for the diamonds in your own life, the potential that's already there.
And believing in yourself enough to dig for them.
Exactly. He's saying if you don't put in the effort, you're essentially stealing from yourself.
Robbing yourself of the chance to achieve something great.
Right. All right, let's move on to letter 16. This one's titled, Never Let Second Place Satisfy You. And it starts with a quote from Henry Ford.
Oh, what's the quote?
A person without ambition will not accomplish great things.
Makes sense. You need that drive, that desire to achieve something.
Exactly. And Rockefeller uses this quote to talk about the importance of setting big goals.
Okay.
He compares Ford's background to his own. They both started out in farming, then apprenticeships, then partnerships, and eventually achieved huge success. And for Rockefeller, this proves that how much you achieve depends on how big you dream.
So aim high. Don't settle for mediocrity.
Exactly. He contrasts people with big ambitions to those who just want to get by or are stuck in the rat race.
Right. Those who settle for just existing instead of truly living.
And Rockefeller had this strong belief that working hard to get rich for someone else was a lie.
Meaning?
He believed that true wealth, true fulfillment came from working for myself, having your own vision, your own goals, and working towards them.
So it's about being in control of your own destiny.
Exactly. He then talks about his own experience when he was looking for a job. He wasn't just looking for any job. He wanted to join a top company.
Why was that?
Because he wanted to learn from the best, gain experience, develop skills, and earn good money, all as preparation for starting his own business.
He saw it as an investment in his future.
Yeah. He consciously used that job as a stepping stone. He wasn't just punching the clock. He was actively learning and preparing for his own venture. And that experience eventually allowed him to co-found Clark Rockefeller.
It gave him the skills and confidence he needed to go out on his own.
Exactly. He then makes a distinction between what he calls stupidly hard work, just working hard for the sake of it, and working hard with a purpose, a direction, a goal in mind.
It's about working smart, not just hard.
Right. And he talks about the feeling of empowerment that comes from being your own boss, controlling your own fate.
It's that sense of ownership and autonomy.
Yeah. And he finishes this letter by sharing his own personal driving force. For me, second place is no different from last place.
Wow. That's intense.
It is, right.
Hmm.
He's saying that he was never satisfied with just doing okay. He always wanted to be the best, to be number one. And that's what fueled his success in the oil industry. It wasn't just about winning, it was about dominating.
It's a mindset of relentless ambition.
Okay, let's move on to letter 20. This one's titled, Take Risks to Make Use of Opportunities. And it starts with a news report about a guy winning big at a casino.
A casino. That's an interesting starting point.
It is, right. So this guy, David Morris, he wins a lot of money at a casino.
Mm-hmm.
And his motto is, only by curiosity can you discover opportunities, and by taking risks can you make use of them.
Okay.
And Rockefeller uses this to talk about his belief that playing it safe won't get you very far.
You need to be willing to take risks to achieve great things.
Exactly. He says that accepting calculated risks is essential for progress. You can't just stay still, you have to keep moving forward.
Or you'll fall behind.
Right. He then gives an example from his own life involving J.P. Morgan.
Oh, okay.
So Morgan wanted to control the U.S. steel industry.
Ah, big goal.
It was. And Rockefeller had no interest in Wall Street, so Morgan knew he needed to work with him, not against him.
Right.
Then Rockefeller highlights how smart Morgan was to put aside his ego, his pride, to achieve his goal.
It's about recognizing when you need to cooperate to succeed.
Exactly. Then he shares a really personal story from his childhood.
Oh, what's that?
He talks about how in middle school he was excluded from a class photo because his clothes were too shabby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty painful memory. But he says his reaction wasn't anger or self-pity.
What was it then?
It fueled his ambition. He decided right then and there that he was going to become the richest person in the world.
He turned that negative experience into motivation.
Exactly. He imagined having his portrait painted by the most famous artist as a symbol of his success, a direct contrast to being excluded because of his appearance.
It's a powerful story about using setbacks to fuel your ambition.
Okay, let's move on to our final letter for today, letter 22. This one's titled, Using Your Strength to Scare Your Opponents. And it starts with the scene of a business negotiation.
Okay, sounds intense.
It is. So Rockefeller is meeting with a mediator, a guy named Henry Frick, to discuss the United Mining Company.
Right.
And he describes how he took a very firm stance, refusing to back down to buyers who were trying to lowball him. He was willing to fight, to walk away from the deal, rather than accept unfair terms.
He knew his worth.
He did. And he makes this important point that all business, no matter what industry, it's ultimately about people.
Right.
So negotiation isn't just about companies battling it out. It's about human interaction, understanding people's motivations and emotions.
It's a psychological game.
Exactly. Then he outlines 5 things you need to win in any kind of competition.
5 things, okay? What are they?
First, you need to understand the overall environment.
The big picture.
Right. Second, you need to know your own resources, your strengths and weaknesses.
What you bring to the table?
Yeah. Third, you need to know your opponent's resources, their strengths and weaknesses.
What they're capable of.
Exactly. Fourth, you need to know your own goals and your own attitude. He quotes Apollo's motto here, you know yourself.
Self-awareness is crucial.
It is. You need to know what you want and how badly you want it. And you need to have a winner's mindset.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the 5th thing?
The 5th, and maybe the hardest, is understanding your opponent's goals and attitude.
Knowing what they want and how they're going to play the game?
Right. He compares it to being a military general, anticipating your enemy's moves. He says it's better to be proactive, to prevent problems, than to react after they happen.
Preparation is key.
It is. And he talks about how understanding someone's personality, whether they're cautious or impulsive, can help you predict their actions.
So reading people is important.
It is. And he emphasizes the importance of observation during negotiation.
For clues.
Exactly. He says people's choices often reveal their true intentions, even when their words don't.
So pay attention to the details.
Yeah, and never let your guard down. You have to be vigilant to maintain your advantage.
Makes sense.
And he ends the letter with this great piece of advice. Be nice to others when you climb up, because you will run into them when you go downhill.
Oh, I like that.
It's a reminder to treat people well, even when you're on top, because you never know when the tables might turn.
It's about building lasting relationships.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dives into these 11 letters, what are some of the big takeaways for you?
Well, one thing that really stands out is the importance of proactive planning.
Yeah, Rockefeller's idea of planning luck.
Exactly. It's not about leaving things to chance. It's about anticipating challenges and opportunities and putting yourself in a position to succeed.
Right. And closely related to that is the idea of self-reliance.
Yeah, that no free lunch principle.
He's saying don't rely on others, develop your own skills, take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And then there's that constant emphasis on diligence and self-belief.
Yeah, those powerful phrases like, wealth is a byproduct of diligence, and never let second place satisfy you.
He's all about hard work, perseverance, and striving for excellence.
Definitely. And he's also not afraid of taking risks.
Calculated risks, of course.
Right. He understands that you have to step outside your comfort zone to achieve great things.
You can't just play it safe all the time.
And finally, I think the importance of the human element in business really comes through.
Yeah, especially in that last letter about negotiation.
It's a reminder that business is about people. And understanding people is crucial for success.
It's not just about numbers and strategies.
So thinking about all these lessons, these insights from over 100 years ago, how can we apply them to our lives today?
Well, Think about Rockefeller's idea of the diamonds in your backyard.
Okay.
What opportunities are you missing out on because you're not looking closely enough at your own life, your own skills, your own potential?
It's a reminder to explore what's right in front of us.
Exactly. And think about your mindset. Do you believe in yourself? Do you have that relentless drive to achieve your goals?
Are you making excuses that are holding you back?
Right. And maybe the most challenging question, given Rockefeller's ambition, is this. Where are you settling for second place in your own life?
What potential are you not tapping into?
Right. What would it take for you to embrace that never settle mentality?
That's a great question to ponder. And on that note, this has been another fascinating deep dive into the mind of J.D. Rockefeller.
Definitely. So much to learn from his wisdom.
And if you're enjoying these explorations of insightful books, be sure to subscribe to Motivation Library for more.
We've got lots more deep dives coming up.
Until next time, keep learning, keep striving, and never settle for second place.
Absolutely.
All right, see you everyone.